Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. It's my pleasure today to bring you another webinar in the Citrix Ready Technical Webinar Series. Today we have a very special partner of ours to co-present this webinar with us, Cisco. And the topic on hand today is Cisco HyperFlex for Citrix Cloud Services. Before I introduce our three esteemed speakers, I'd like to just take a quick minute to give you some context and background to how we've reached to this webinar. So we've been collaborating with Cisco for the past few months to bring this solution to life. This is part of the Citrix Ready HCI Workspace Appliance program, where what we're trying to do is eliminate the multiple layers of complexity that often arise behind a VDI solution. Now, while hyperconverged infrastructure itself combines compute, networking, as well as the storage layers, what we've tried to do with the Citrix Workspace appliances is go a step beyond that and provide you a combination of HCI that connects to the Citrix cloud. And I think this is something really unique that we've been able to create. Now, what we've done is we've really come together with Cisco to create this hybrid cloud solution for Citrix Workspace, which is not only fast, but also easy to deploy and manage. So all in all, we've collaborated with Cisco under this program to simplify lives for you, to simplify your IT infrastructure, and make sure that your environment, your IT environment, runs seamlessly. Now, before we move on, I'd also like to talk about a few housekeeping details. We are recording this webinar, so we'll send you a copy of the recording in the next 24 hours. In case you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to use the question and answer panel on the GoToWebinar platform. If the questions are relevant to the entire audience, we'll take them at the end of the session where we have a formal Q&A session. If it's something that can be answered quickly, we'll try to do that on the chat itself. Before handing it over to speakers again, let me just take one quick minute to introduce Citrix Ready. So Citrix Ready is basically a program that we run in Citrix for technology companies where you can partner with Citrix to integrate with other technologies, which could be across digital workspace, networking, as well as analytics. And what happens from there on is these companies can test and validate their joint solutions and then in turn earn the Citrix Ready designation, which over the years have really meant to be the badge that provides that added trust to our customers that proves that the two technologies and two products work seamlessly with each other. We do have a marketplace. There's a URL being displayed on the slide itself where you could explore over 1,000 partners and 30,000 plus verifications that we already have. So without further ado, at this point, let me bring in the speakers. I'd like to introduce Bernie. Thanks for joining the webinar, Bernie.
Thank you, Rubel.
Bernie, you want to quickly tell the audience what you do at Citrix?
Yes, Bernie Hannon, Senior Director, Strategic Alliances for Citrix, and I am responsible for our alliance partnership between Citrix and Cisco Systems. And let me just take a moment now and take you through the agenda, and I'll also introduce the two other co-presenters with me. I'm going to start by talking about what we're hearing from the marketplace, from our customers, about their needs, and how we are now trying to drive something we call the future of work. We'll take a moment to, and this is where I'll begin to introduce you to the solution that we are calling Cisco HyperFlex for Citrix Cloud. I'll turn things over to Alan Formansky at that point. Alan is Citrix Alliance's solution architect, and he'll take you through Citrix Cloud and provide a brief technical overview. Alan will then turn things over to Jeff Nichols, who is a technical marketing engineer from Cisco Systems, and he will take you through a HyperFlex technical overview, and then through an actual demo of this solution on the Cisco D Cloud. And then he'll hand it back to me for a summary, and we'll do some Q&A. So with that, let's get started. And we'll talk about the evolving workforce. Everyone's workforce is evolving. Everyone's. Qualified talent is getting harder and harder to attract and retain, and their expectations are constantly changing. The ratio of remote and mobile workers is now equal to those in a traditional office environment. Even traditional office workers now need to work remotely at least sometime during the week. And even within a physical office environment, we're moving around constantly. The average employee works in 4 or more locations throughout the day. Your work tools need to follow you and adapt to the environment and the work that you need to get done. So your workforce not only needs to work, needs not only to work from multiple locations every day, but an increasing number are saying that the work experience matters more than ever. For instance, a recent Harris Poll survey showed consumers' buying habits are shifting towards experiences. They said that more than 3 in 4 millennials would rather spend money on a desirable experience or an event over buying a desirable product. And 55% of millennials say they're spending more money on events and live experiences than ever before. So what else is evolving? Without a doubt, the answer is the prevalence of cloud computing. We've seen a consistent and broad adoption of cloud technology. Forrester says 100%, that's 100% of companies will use some public cloud over the next 12 months. They also said that 59% of companies are already adopting a hybrid cloud model. And then finally, IDC says that more than 2/3 of all enterprise IT workloads will be in the cloud in all its permutations by 2020. That's just next year. So let's come back to user experience for a moment. In general, what we hear is that user experience is suffering, while risk and complexity are on the rise. So why is that? This is because the average large company is delivering hundreds of individual apps with users forced to navigate multiple environments and performance outcomes. People are feeling overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the number of apps, emails, notifications, tasks, and more. It's taking up human energy, it increases context switching, and reduces productivity. And users are increasingly unable to find what they are looking for to get work done. Risk has increased as data, device, and app security is now distributed across endpoints, third-party services, and clouds. And all this is happening at a pace that results in ever-increasing complexity for the folks that have to deliver it all, IT. So IT not only has to deliver, but it also has to do so while balancing the needs of users with control and security. The need to keep your apps, content, and devices secure means controlling distributed IT, but without impacting user experience, productivity, and innovation. You need security that provides granular control over access and adjusts to where and how each user prefers to work. And to identify and stay ahead of internal and external threats, you need a broad and integrated view of your entire IT environment. So the pressure on business leaders today is enormous. They not only have to keep the trains running on time, they have to worry about driving rapid innovation and the bottom line in response to all these shifts. Our approach at Citrix is people-centric, and it unifies IT's needs with user needs. We drive to support end users and give them more choice, so they're more engaged and productive while allowing IT to securely onboard SaaS apps, web apps, and files with a new level of visibility and control with what we call digital workspaces. Flexibility has been the mandate for workers across all industries for a while. But big challenges continue to hold some companies back. With all of the different variables, finding ways to get and give information to everyone in your workforce while also protecting business critical apps and data can be difficult. Adding to that is the job of onboarding temporary workers, acquisitions, freelancers, global employees on branch networks. All of this is requiring large-scale integration. And the many smaller ways people fill their workday means the tools either help or hurt your bottom line. You may have people who have to be in the office during the day, but I'll bet that many start their day working on a smartphone, transition to a laptop, and spend at least some time at a client site, in the field, or in a public space doing their work. A place where all this comes together, focusing on the needs of users and IT. A place where users can easily find everything they need to get their work done on the device or devices of their choice, and from wherever they need to do their work, is what digital workspaces is all about. So what happens when employees are able to work from a digital workspace? Well, the results can be pretty staggering. According to Oxford economic data, 96% of users are able to solve problems more creatively. 87% are able to provide better customer service, and 90% are able to collaborate more effectively. So remember, we're balancing user experience with control and security. That also means focusing on what's keeping the chief information and security officers up at night. At the end of the day, they really care about two things: trust and risk. Those outcomes are measured by business continuity, employee experience, and less about what's in the headlines in the paper. Our intelligent workspace, or more simply what we call Citrix workspaces, the strategy is holistic, and it offers secure delivery of applications of all types, from SaaS to mobile to those that are virtualized from the data center. It has content delivered in an intelligent, integrated manner, whether it resides on-prem or in the cloud. It has universal management across endpoints with a common user interface. Everything users need is in one place, a place that looks familiar and it's fluid. IT has complete visibility and control over performance, management, and security. And finally, it needs to have a secure but flexible perimeter in order to embrace the cloud. With Citrix workspaces, both users and IT get what they need to get their work done securely, with performance, and with a great user experience. So while we've talked about the future of work, the reality is that many companies haven't even made the transition to virtualizing their apps and desktop yet. Like many things, it usually boils down to at least one or a combination of these three things: complexity, time, and money. Who doesn't have to support both new and older legacy infrastructure and keep everything up and running all the time? Those who've used VDI in the past have often found it to be complex and taking longer to get a return on investment than they had hoped for. And finally, everyone has to do more with less. Very few companies have the luxury anymore of keeping specialized resources on staff. So what if we could tell you that these three barriers could literally disappear? It can. And it's possible because Citrix and Cisco have collaborated over the past 18 months to develop a solution that leverages the best of what we both do and integrates them. So let's take a look at these three barriers again, starting with complexity. First, hyperconverged infrastructure has compressed three layers of management down to one. Most importantly, you don't need separate IT specialists to deploy and manage it. Citrix has likewise taken the complexity of deploying and managing the Citrix stack and moved it to the cloud, where Citrix manages it, patches it, backs it up, keeps it up to date, everything that you used to need trained specialists to do. We do the hard part, leaving you to focus on the things that are more important to you. Then there's time. Remember when VDI used to take weeks or even longer to get up and running? We do, and so does every customer who's deployed VDI in the past. Well, with this solution, you're now looking at doing this in hours, not days or weeks. And finally, cost. Citrix now offers apps and desktop services on a subscription basis. Gone are the days of buying licenses in bulk and paying for annual support. Now you can buy only what you need, and the cost of support is already built in. More and more of our customers have told us that they prefer this OpEx style of purchasing software licenses. Also, because this solution is simple and quick to deploy, Your time to value can be significantly less than traditional deployments. Another way the cost is impacted is with the ability to shift work associated with routine management off your plate and put those valuable resources to work where they can be more beneficial to the business. Lastly, unlike traditional desktop deployments, Citrix workspaces leverage the best of the cloud for management while securely locating your apps and data on-prem, where many customers say they need to have them. This hybrid cloud model is secure, and these days you can't put a price on the cost benefit of securing your apps and data while giving your users the remote access and productivity they require at the same time. Plug it in and be connected with the Citrix Cloud in minutes, and you can deploy scalable, secure, fully integrated virtual app and desktop environments in hours, not days. So now I'm going to ask Rubel to turn things over to Alan Formansky to go into more detail about Citrix Cloud and how this all works with Cisco HyperFlex.
Absolutely. And thanks, Bunny.
All right, great. Thanks for that, Bernie. And hello, everyone. I'm Alan Formansky, a solutions architect with Citrix, focusing on infrastructure solutions. So now we're going to take a look at the technical overview from the Citrix Cloud side, kind of drilling a little further into what Bernie just described to us. So I've been at Citrix a while now, and for a number of years, this is how customers have traditionally deployed virtual app and desktop solutions. This is a very much proven service-oriented approach, what we call our FlexCast management architecture, or FMA. And this is proven every day in customer environments all around the world, from environments serving up dozens of servers and desktops to users to literally tens of thousands. And I'll just briefly walk through the components if you're not familiar with them. The components are centered around a delivery controller. So this is the primary server that's handling the brokering functionality for our user sessions and where we define policies and build out the environment. Then we have our SQL Server backend database. We have our two management consoles, the Studio and Director consoles. We have a license server. We have Storefront, which is our web-based self-service enterprise app portal. And we have a gateway, right, ensuring that users are able to connect in from any location securely. We have the Active Directory integration, and we have the actual workloads, right? The server and desktop images or resources that are being served up to users, or what we call VDAs, the virtual delivery agents. And these types of environments can, again, be built out at scale, and users will access these environments from our Citrix WorkSpace app. This is our endpoint app that is available on really any type of device that an end user would use within the day. And as you see here, the user can connect directly to that Storefront enterprise self-service app portal, perhaps if they're internal to the organization, or if they're external, connecting from home or coffee shop, they'll come in through the Citrix gateway. So this is a proven architecture with these given components that we've had for a number of years. Though the customer or perhaps a partner would manage all these components entirely, right? So the controllers, the Active Directory, the SQL Server, and the high availability. So as you might imagine, the customer needs to have the resources and the expertise in order to really properly integrate and manage everything and get those business outcomes that they expect. So in short, while this works and it is proven, it can be challenging for some organizations. So surely there must be a better, more turnkey approach, and absolutely there is. When we talk about app and desktop virtualization, to make something more turnkey, we need to ensure that it's easy to deploy and maintain, provide that true, tangible time to value where customers can literally get up and running in a matter of hours. And that's exactly what we've done here. With Citrix Cloud and working with Cisco HyperFlex solutions, we're able to provide a best of breed solution. With Citrix Cloud, Citrix manages that control plane. So you don't have to worry about the SQL database and the high availability, or the license server, or setting up and managing and updating your delivery controllers. At Citrix, we take care of all that for our customers, and we keep it evergreen. On the infrastructure side, we have the concept of a resource location. Okay, so this is the bottom portion here, and customers can have one or more resource locations at the data centers or colos of their choice, featuring Cisco HyperFlex infrastructure. So this gives customers extremely, extremely solid performance. It gives them the compliance, the security, the data sovereignty that they would expect, while all at the same time, that cloud-based management plane that is merely holding the metadata of the environment, if you will, is managed by Citrix. The time to value is greatly accelerated, and overall, within the life cycle of the environment, customers are able to focus on the most strategic part of their business, which is the actual resources that they're delivering. The server delivery agents, the desktop delivery agents, the applications, and what they're actually translating into business results. So in short, cloud-based management, you have the local resources, all the benefits, none of the risk, and a very short time to value that can be realized. Now let's talk a little bit about Citrix Cloud. So Citrix Cloud is really the strategy of our entire company at Citrix. We believe it's the future of creating a secure, modern digital workspace, and it's a very consumable offering of different services. When you think of Citrix Cloud, don't think of it necessarily as a public cloud, but rather an on-demand, cloud-based management plane of services. And these are some of the key services that you can see here. Our overall workspace service, the virtual app service, virtual desktop, and several others. So when we talk about this solution, the Cisco HyperFlex for Citrix Cloud Services, that's your entry point into secure hybrid cloud. You can start with the virtual apps and desktop service, and from there, perhaps branch out and consume other services as your business requires. It's a subscription, it's on demand, and we make it very simple and consumable. In fact, you can see here, simple, fast, secure, and adaptable. These are some of the key tenets of Citrix Cloud. It's simple to consume and use the services. In fact, if you have an admin that's been using on-premises versions of the components, they'll find it to be very much the same using those components in Citrix Cloud. Or if we have a net new customer, it's very intuitive to get up to speed and begin consuming these services and resources. It's fast. We have access from anywhere. In fact, the control plane of Citrix Cloud is available in the 3 major geographies. So organizations can choose the specific geo that's best for them for that given deployment, be it Americas, EMEA, or the Asia Pacific region. It's secure. We keep the environment patched per Citrix and industry best practice, so the customer doesn't have to think about those elements, and they can focus again on the resources that they're trying to deliver. And it's adaptable. You can adapt your infrastructure to consume new services and storage and infrastructure as required, all with literally a minimal to no business disruption. Keep things moving. Now, Cisco HyperFlex for Citrix Cloud Services enables that hybrid cloud solution, where this Citrix Cloud is your management plane, the administration, and this can be accessed on demand from anywhere. Now, focusing specifically around our virtual apps and desktop solutions, I think it's always important to lead with use cases. What are we trying to achieve? What are some of the challenges that we may be facing as an organization? And then look to a solution such as this to overcome them. Things such as the ability to access from any device, right? It's not uncommon for the typical modern worker to have 2 or 3 devices, increasingly using more and more mobile devices. Secure BYOD programs, right? if we're bringing our own BYO laptop with us, we could be remote, we could be in the office, doesn't matter. But how can we ensure that we'll have the apps, the desktops, and the data that we need to be productive? This solution allows you to do that. Empowering work from anywhere. Right? Increasingly, we have remote workers, offshoring. There's weather phenomenons. Employees need to be productive, and the line between work and personal time is often blurred. We need to ensure that we let employees work on their terms. Accelerating mergers and acquisitions, global expansion, and the last one, which I think is perhaps one of the most important, if not the most important point, is around an optimized user experience. When you're designing and implementing any kind of IT solution, the user experience has to be front and center. Environments and projects are successful when you win from your user base, when the users are not only accomplishing business tasks, but they want in, they want their virtual apps and desktops. They want to be able to access their resources from the device of their choice, and that really helps to fuel business productivity. With Citrix and Cisco solutions, we provide an unparalleled user experience. We have a lot of great technologies and GPU accelerated workloads to ensure that no matter what kind of workload we're delivering for our users, you can rest assured that it's going to be the best possible experience over any device, any network, anytime. All right, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeff now, and he'll take us through a little more detail on the HyperFlex side of things.
Thanks, Alan. Over to you, Jeff.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Rubal. Thank you, Alan, for that introduction. Like they said, my name is Jeff Nichols. I am a technical marketing engineer for Cisco Solutions. I work on the VDI performance team, creating content, specifically CVDs, which are the Cisco validated designs for Citrix solutions on HyperFlex hardware and UCS hardware. So what is HyperFlex? HyperFlex is Cisco's hyperconverged solution that is really taking the VDI world by storm. We are modernizing a platform built on top of our Cisco UCS foundation. So your traditional infrastructure had your siloed components, your network, compute, storage, and then management. So Cisco has their UCS manager, UCS management that is really industry leading, but we've built that into converging our Cisco Fabric, as well as now the HX data platform, which really makes up Cisco HyperFlex. We are really running Citrix VDI solutions with high efficiency on this hyperconverged platform. So what are customers saying about it? We have over 3,000 customers, industry-leading HCI innovations. The speed of the virtual desktops are really great for people moving from the Windows 7s to the Windows 10. We have a lot of use cases of migrations. We have a lot of people replacing their arrays for virtual desktop workloads with HyperFlex. So HyperFlex is built on our Cisco hardware. You can have the HX220, which is the single rack unit server. You can have the HX240, which is the 2U. Those are more used for adding GPUs. There's more density. And then you can add compute-only nodes with our traditional blade servers. So what is Cisco and Citrix doing to integrate? So Cisco is moving that great management platform that is UCS Manager to the cloud in what we're calling Cisco Intersight. And we can also manage our HyperFlex environments through that. So HyperFlex Connect, UCS Manager is all moving to the cloud, similar to what Citrix is doing with all of their infrastructure pieces. So as you can see, Cisco and Citrix are working to integrate those two so that the eventual desire is to have a single pane of glass where you manage everything. You have deployment capabilities, monitoring capabilities, proactive solutions so that they can be monitored and identify problems before they even creep up onto the end user. And one of the things that we work on in our CVDs for Citrix VDI solutions is, where is that management piece going to be? This is something that's been debated and discussed since the beginning of HyperFlex, is where do the Citrix components for a VDI solution sit? Do they sit on the HyperFlex cluster? We originally recommended that they sit on an external cluster of some sort. So the HyperFlex is only used to house the virtual desktop workloads. And then your components that Alan talked about earlier, your storefronts, your delivery controllers, your licensing servers, SQL servers, all sit outside of the HyperFlex cluster. Then as customers started replacing arrays and looking for places to place these components, we started moving them into the cluster. The HyperFlex clusters can more than handle the workload, but now they have to share time with the virtual desktop workload. So that's why Citrix Cloud is very exciting and fits perfectly into what we're doing with HyperFlex. Is now there's no more question about where the infrastructure pieces sit. That can all be managed in the cloud and leaving just the compute and storage and networking for your virtual desktop workloads, while offloading that all to the cloud. And you don't have to manage an external cluster of machines to have that. You don't have to have any of your Citrix components on-prem. So what I'm going to walk you through real quick is how easy it is to set up the Citrix Workspace appliance on the HyperFlex Connect. So with HyperFlex version 3.52a, we introduced the integration of the Citrix Cloud into the HyperFlex Connect. What you're seeing on your screen is the HyperFlex Connect front page to manage the array. And if you click on the settings button, you'll see there's a new integration titled Citrix. So when you click on that, you're brought to a page that begins the setup for the Citrix Workspace appliance. And what this is doing is it's going through and asking you if you have completed all the prerequisites. Now, in our Citrix Workspace appliance deployment guide, it's very detailed as to what you need to do to get the machines ready to go. So since the Cloud Connector software runs on a Windows server, the prerequisites are to have a template on your HyperFlex Connect machine or HyperFlex cluster that has been sysprepped, it's secure, it's patched according to your environment's standards. That machine should be built on the HyperFlex cluster. It should be powered off, and you should have already created in your Citrix Cloud subscription, you should already have your resource locations configured. Once you verify those prerequisites, while creating the Citrix resource locations, and then while setting up your secure client in the API access section, you'll receive the opportunity to download a CSV file that has all of your secure client ID, client secret, and customer ID in it. What you'll do in the HyperFlex Connect is browse for that CSV file, which will populate these three fields. You can also, if you have them, you can also copy and paste them. You don't have to browse. That just gives you the option. It's easier than typing out the long number or copying and pasting it. And then you click connect. And what this action is doing is now connecting the array to the Citrix Cloud and forming that handshake with the Citrix Cloud. Once that's done, you're back down to the array, and you can use the drop-down list, and it'll display all of your resource locations that you've created in your Citrix Cloud. And the next thing is you browse down to find that base template. You create the username and password for that base template, and then that's your connector VM name. So the connector VM name is the prefix of what you want your machine to be. The process is going to append a hyphen and then a number. So high availability is that check mark. What that does is decides whether it's going to deploy one machine or two machines. So whether you deploy one machine or two machines, all of the VMs created in this process are added to the HyperFlex Windows failover cluster that is created when you create the HyperFlex cluster itself. So they're highly available in multiple ways. There's two of them for load balancing, and then they're highly available through Windows failover clustering as the virtual machine. And then you simply click connect. And what it does is it runs through the process of exporting the template VM onto the array and then re-importing it into your data store, adding the networking, adding the connector VMs to the domain, and then installing the Citrix Cloud connector. And it does all of this very quickly. This whole process takes about 8.5 minutes. And then once you're done, you should be able to go into your Citrix Cloud, and these two machines that you've just created, they've already been IP'd, added to your domain, and had the connector software installed, and they should show up as green. If they don't show up as green, that's when you start troubleshooting, but I've had every single time I've had them show up as green and ready to go. So once you get that all integrated, your Citrix administrators will see a very familiar menu set in the Citrix Cloud. This is actually the Desktop Studio management plane, but I'm running it in my cloud. And you can see I created my desktop groups. Everything looks very much the same, including here, it's now, you set up your hosting, and all of that hosting information is down in my environment, my on-premises HyperFlex cluster, but I'm managing it now through the Citrix Cloud. So that's how the overview of how the Workspace appliance works. And if you're interested in seeing how Citrix desktops run on HyperFlex, we do have what we're using called dCloud, and this is a solution where you can test to see how well Citrix runs on HyperFlex. You can log into our dCloud at that URL right there, and you can set up a catalog, or you can view our catalog and see Cisco HyperFlex 3.5. In this particular example, you get to test how Citrix desktops run with a vGPU on our HyperFlex solution. All you have to do is go to this, create an account on dCloud, sign up, and click View. And what you'll get temporary credentials. As you can see, there's a 2-hour timer, and this was a couple days ago, so those credentials don't work. But you'll get your own unique credentials. You can sign in, and you'll get 2 desktops. And this, like I said, in this particular example, it's with vGPU. So you can actually test and see how well a Windows 10 desktop works with the GPU and without one. There are some tests on there that really show how well it works with vGPU. And again, on the back end, that's all running on HyperFlex hardware, and it's all being managed in the cloud with Citrix Cloud. And this is kind of a summary of what that test will show you. So this is something that you could access today to see how well Citrix VDI runs on HyperFlex. And again, this whole Cisco HyperFlex for cloud services is in the Citrix Ready Marketplace. And if you want to have any more information on it and see any more, just visit the Citrix Ready Marketplace, and you should be able to see, leads you to any more information you need. Come to our website, go to their website. And Rubal, with that, I'll pass it to Bernie.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, this is the time. Please do post your questions in the question and answer panel. Handing it over to you, Bernie, for any last words.
All right, folks. So let's just take a moment now to wrap things up by talking a little bit about some of the common use cases for HyperFlex with Citrix. The use cases for virtual desktops today is led primarily by Windows 10 migration. Tens of millions of physical desktop users are still working on legacy Windows OS PCs, laptops, and workstations. Moving to Windows 10 will require more graphics capability than ever before. And GPUs are the best way to do this. And as we've already pointed out, no one does GPUs like NVIDIA. Some additional use cases include security. So most customers have a complete set of security initiatives. As you can see from today's presentation, securing the digital perimeter with Citrix and Cisco can have a direct and immediate impact on desktop and data security. There's also a sizable base of Cisco UCS customers that are coming up on refresh cycles in increasing numbers every day. These customers can look to HyperFlex not only as a way to simplify the infrastructure management, but also as an easy path to hybrid cloud for Citrix workspaces. Likewise, Citrix customers now have an easy on-ramp to Citrix Cloud with HyperFlex. Typically, branch or remote office locations lack the capabilities of primary headquarter locations, and that's largely due to the lack of skilled resources to manage systems at the edge, and frankly, the cost. With centralized cloud management capabilities of Cisco Intersight and Citrix Cloud, together with the shrinking footprint of hyperconverged architecture, customers no longer have to treat these edge locations differently from the home office. These edge appliances can be drop shipped and turned up in a matter of hours with someone having only minimal IT skills. And then lastly, customers who aren't using virtual desktops and apps today because it's been too complicated, too time consuming, and too resource intensive, as we've shown you today, you now have the ability to deploy secure digital workspaces quickly and without the need for expert resources, and get the return, that quick return on investment that you've been looking for. So if you like what you've heard today, we encourage you to take advantage of the resources that are available for you to be able to learn more. We provided links to solution pages for Cisco HyperFlex, for Citrix Cloud, as well as a link to one of the more popular TechWise TV segments led by Citrix CTO Christian Riley. If you haven't seen it, I think you'll really enjoy that. Please take advantage. We've also provided contact information for both the technical SMEs on this call, as well as my own and my Cisco Alliance counterpart, Paul Teal. This deck will be made available to you for download shortly following this call today. So wrapping up, Citrix and Cisco are all about delivering the future of work. And more importantly, we believe that the future of work is now. So thank you. And Rubel, we're ready to take questions.
Thanks, Barney, and thanks all of you for wonderful presentation. Let's move right to it. So we have a few questions coming in. So does PVS fit into this solution, or is this all leveraging MCS? Maybe Alan, you can take this one.
Yeah, sure. We'll be glad to. Great question. Appreciate that. So our MCS, our machine creation services, it's our disk-based virtual machine provisioning technology. It's directly integrated within the console and really the virtual apps and desktop service itself. So you don't need any additional components, and you can provision hundreds or thousands of VMs directly on the hypervisor on your HyperFlex platform. For this reason, we recommend it for most customers to leverage machine creation services. However, keep in mind that provisioning services or our network streaming provisioning technology can absolutely be used if you would prefer that approach. It does require the additional infrastructure, but you're fully entitled to use that as part of the subscription in the virtual apps and desktop service.
Thank you, Alan. Jeff, I think the next one's for you. How does the HyperFlex solution compare to other hyperconverged platforms?
Oh, that's a great question. So HyperFlex competes very well against other hyperconverged platforms. The differentiator there is it's built on top of Cisco's UCS management. So you still get to do UCS Manager and now Cisco Intersight to manage all of that hardware. It's built on top of our industry-leading fabric technology. But we go toe-to-toe with all of the other hyperconverged solutions when it comes to compute and storage performance with VDI workloads.
Got it. Awesome. There's another one for you, Jeff. Any insight into what user profile types to use for HyperFlex? Would it be SMBs all the way up for large enterprises?
User profile types? Was
Right.
that the question? So in all of our solutions, we're utilizing roaming profiles, and well, let me step back. We utilize roaming profiles for most of our CVDs using Citrix User Profile Manager. We do also include static full clone desktops in our environment, which would be local user profiles. Is that what the question was, or are we talking about?
I think the question is also about scale. Would it be only for SMBs or large
I
enterprise?
apologize. So scalability. So you're talking about the customer profile for
Right.
VDI. So we have a minimum of a 3-node, and now we're going to be moving to a 2-node cluster for HyperFlex as a minimum. But right now with 352A, our minimum cluster size is 3 nodes, which can be used for your smallest customer, your SMB, and then we scale up to 64 nodes and 32 nodes on Hyper-V, I believe it is. And we have Citrix or Cisco validated designs out there with over 4,000 users scaled. So we scale very linearly and have no issue scaling up to the thousands of virtual desktops on a HyperFlex cluster.
Got it. I see. Another one coming in. Maybe Alan, you can take this one. How do you optimize for unified communication solution?
Sure. So we have the ability to optimize leading unified communication solutions. Cisco Jabber is a key one. We've worked with Cisco on the Jabber soft phone for VDI. So using that solution, you can optimize the delivery of your voice and video in VDI environments. It will work great with the type of environment that we described here today. Basically, you offload the voice and video processing to the endpoint device on supported endpoints. So that is supported with Cisco Jabber and other UCS solutions as well, Microsoft Skype, Teams, Avaya, and others. So yes, fully supported, and we work closely with the vendors on that.
Awesome. Thanks. Jeff, maybe you can take the next one. There's a gentleman who's asked, I'm presuming the HyperFlex can be used with traditional on-premises deployments. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, any content you see on our website for VDI CVDs are going to be on-prem. So most of what I mentioned earlier about we have as low as 450 user reference architectures up to over 4,000 users. All of those components are on premises. We just started projects where we're using the Citrix cloud to broker these machines. But if you look at any of our reference architectures out there now, they're all on premises.
Got it. Another one, if somebody already owns UCS, what is the migration to HyperFlex? And a follow-up to that is, can the existing UCS hardware be used, or is it a completely new hardware software purchase?
Well, let's see if I can answer that. It's a completely new hardware purchase to purchase the initial HyperFlex cluster. So in order to get your converged nodes, those are the nodes that make up your HyperFlex cluster, your HX220s or your HX240s. That's a new purchase. We do have the ability, if they are some of the older blade servers or C220s or C240s, I believe, and I believe it's M3s or above, can be added as compute-only nodes to your cluster. So if you have old UCS hardware, you can add it to the new purchase, and you can leverage the computing. So you won't have any storage capabilities on there as far as the hyperconverged storage, but you can utilize your old hardware as compute-only nodes in the cluster. As far as the migration, it'd be a similar migration to any any new hardware platform. You would build up the new environment and migrate your machines over to it as if, the data store will be presented to the hypervisor as if it were an array, and the networking will be presented as virtual switches. So it'd be a traditional migration.
All right, I see. Another one coming on. How about support for virtual reality? Are you seeing real demand for this use case, since there seems to be a lot of buzz around this?
I guess I'll start with that one, and others might have opinions. So I don't know that we're seeing necessarily very high demand there. I think many organizations are kind of in the exploratory phase when it comes to virtual reality and augmented reality type solutions. That being said, we are definitely testing with different headsets, and I think it's really important to note that this kind of solution, where you have the data, right, your resources in an on-premises location, that's going to lend itself very well to future offerings such as virtual reality and augmented reality, because you're going to get the lower latency, the great performance, so you can really ensure you're delivering the necessary frame rates required for these types of solutions, and the fluid experiences that users would expect to have or should expect to have. So in short, I think we're still kind of in the exploratory phase, but I know that on the Citrix side, it's something that we are continuing to look into there. And open it up if any one of the other speakers has some thoughts.
Yeah, I'll just mention that I haven't seen any specific use cases yet because it is so young of a technology. But I will tell you that in order for it to work successful, you have to have solid hardware with solid GPUs, and nobody really does it better than Cisco with NVIDIA. So I haven't seen it yet, but I know that our hardware would handle it.
Got it. I guess this is more of a comment than a question. Somebody would love to connect on how we can partner together to bring the solution to the market. So what I'd suggest is after the call, after the webinar, we would send out an email with the webinar recording and our contact details. So please drop us an email and we'll answer that. And I guess that brings us to the end of our Q&A session. Let me just give this back to the speakers once for any final words. Bernie?
I want to thank everybody for your time today. We're excited about the solution that we've created together here with our friends at Cisco, and we invite you to download the technical documents that we've provided, and reach out to us if you have any questions. And if we don't have the answers, we'll find the people who get the answers for you very quickly. So thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Bernie. Alan, any last words?
Well, definitely want to echo what Bernie said, and thanks everyone for joining us on this webinar. We hope you found it informative. There's nothing more compelling than just getting out there and experiencing a demo for yourself. So do take advantage of the resources when this content is made available to you post event, and see how powerful the solution is for yourself.
Thanks, Alan. Jeff, any last thoughts?
Not really. I'd like to thank everybody for having me today. And like Alan said, the resources are out there. We have our dCloud environment so you can see how this actually works. We can talk about it all till we're blue in the face, but till you get your hands on it and see how impressive it is, that's when it'll make a big impact. So the resources are out there, and you can connect with any one of us if you have trouble getting a hold of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the three speakers. Thanks, Bernie, Alan, and Jeff. It's been a pleasure hosting you on our webinar. And last of all, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking out time to attend this webinar. As promised, we will send out the recording within the next 24 hours, and we'll be in touch. Thank you. Have a good day. This concludes our webinar.